Hey everyone, this is LightSport Man, and I'm making this quick video to talk about how to always be prepared for the unexpected. Um, I'm going to go into a little story that happened to me 2 days ago, renting a plane down in Glendale, Arizona, and how we should always be prepared for the unexpected. One thing I like to say is if you look at the bottom, you could see the link to my website, lightsportman.wordpress.com, and my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/lightsportman, and you could also follow me on Twitter. I'm also on a lot of other social media, but those are basically the three places. It would be great if you could go and check me out and like it. So now let's talk about how to always be prepared for the unexpected. The first thing I would really like to bring up is that you really have to be prepared. As a new pilot, most of us, I know I was always scared that something was going to happen. So I think I was always prepared. And you really got to know that, a airplane might disappoint a pilot, but it never surprises a good pilot. What that means is, if you're a good pilot, you should be prepared for the unexpected. On takeoff, you should think of three things. One is, if I have an issue and I have to land and I still got runway underneath me, what do I have to do? The second thing you have to think of is, if I take off and I have an issue but I cannot get right underneath the runway, what do I got to do? Of course, you got to make a turn towards the runway, get it to glide speed, back. And the third option is, hey, everything went great. That's good today. But always keep that as the third option. I would like to think of all the worst cases before the best. So again, an airplane might disappoint any pilot, but it never surprises a good one. Meaning, if you're a good pilot, you're not going to be surprised when something goes wrong. And on another note, I want to bring up a pilot who says he has never been frightened in an airplane is a liar. That is just true. I gotta say, when I first started flying, I did not like it. I was scared. Every time the wind got me, I was like, turbulence. I still do it sometimes. And when I had my event on this past Friday, I gotta say, there was a second. I was scared. I was never put into this situation, and I didn't know what to do. So it took a second to really get calm and say, okay, I know what to do. So again, a pilot who says he's never been frightened in an airplane is lying to you. Everyone gets frightened at times. Something happens, and you're going to get scared. So on that note, remember, you fly an airplane with your mind, not your hands or feet. So what I was trying to say here, and again, all these quotes are great quotes. You fly with your mind, your head. Meaning that if something goes wrong, you got to stay cool and think about what to do and then do it. Your hands and feet is going to do what your mind tells it to. Your hands and feet do not fly the plane. Your mind says, what do I have to do now? And then I get to my hands and feet. So again, remember, you're flying an airplane with your head. You're always thinking of what to do, and your hands and feet are doing what your mind tells them to. So, why am I bringing up how to always be prepared for the unexpected? This is my pattern that I like to fly. That I like to fly out of Glendale. This is actually flying out of Glendale, runway 1. We take off, and I like to go upwind until I pass the fence. They have a fence there, which is about 500, 600 feet above the ground. Then I turn my crosswind, and right before I turn my downwind, I'm pretty much at traffic pattern altitude already. And then I do my downwind, and then as you see, right after I'm a beam of the runway, I pull back my power, and I start to go down, and I go down, a few hundred feet before I turn my base. And then as I'm on my base, I go down more. And then by the time I get to final, I'm about 500 feet AGL. I know not every pilot likes that, not every plane likes that, not every airport that is for. That is what I like to do at Glendale Airport. When I turn my final, I like to be 500 feet above the ground. So, let's talk about how to always be prepared for the unexpected. When I was a new pilot, and I still am very new, every time I took off, every time I land, every time the wind blew, every time I had turbulence, I was scared. And I'm saying it. I'm scared. I was scared. I'm not lying. I was scared something was going to go wrong. And, through my training, we did have stuff go wrong. The plane I rented is a rented plane from a school. There's a lot of people using it. And the school actually got a second hand. So the plane, it was someone else's problem. It came in, and the school's trying to keep up with it. But I definitely had a lot of events go wrong with my training plane. But as I got closer to my 55, 60 hours flying, I started to lay back. I started to enjoy flying, and I wasn't as scared as when the wind blew, when I hit turbulence. Yes, it startled me sometimes because I wasn't waiting for it, but I'm prepared for it. It blows, I'm going to readjust and keep going. But on Friday, I got to say, I wasn't so fortunate. I was taken off from Glendale Airport, and I went down the runway fine. And again, my last few flights, I'm very laid back, even in the plane with the wind blowing, turbulence, and LightSport, we get blown around. I was pretty laid back, and I was not thinking of the unexpected. I took off and I started to climb. I was in my upwind. I had it pitched doing 65 knots. That's what the book recommends. That's what I was learned. Full throttle. As I'm going full throttle, I started watching the RPMs drop. And it took me a second, and I'm looking at the RPMs, and then I started watching the airspeed go 60, 61. And the RPMs were going down, and the motor was sounding a little weird. And I wasn't expecting it. It took me about a second to realize what was going on. So immediately I pulled throttle back, put it back in. The oil temperature lights started to come on. The RPMs were going from high to low. I was already in my high 50s, and I was less than 500 feet. Not a good situation. Slow and low is not where you want it to be. I turned quickly downwind, and I was still about 490 feet up, still trying to adjust the throttle, still going through every procedure I was planned and learned to use, but I wasn't prepared today. It took me about a second to get prepared and say, all right, my head has to fly this. My hands and feet is not going to do this. I'm scared for a second, but my head and feet will do what my hands and feet will do what my head said. So I'm going down the downwind, still trying to fiddle with the throttle, up and down, getting the RPMs up, but they're dropping right down. The plane's still going down, and everyone knows the glide speed is 65 knots. But if I would have went to the glide speed, I would have hit the ground in about 3 seconds probably. So I gotta say, I got down the runway, called tower, told them about my issue, made a turn to base and final, and my speed was in the mid 50s at this point, and I was close. I was close to the ground. Basically, I kept on trying to check the throttle and everything on my way down, and I gotta say, I made it down. I was safe. I was scared. So, it got me. I have to be prepared for the unexpected. There was not much more I could do if I was prepared, but I would have not been so scared. I would have maybe realized it a quarter of a second quicker that I was losing RPMs and losing airspeed. But this could have been a bad case. This could have been a tragic case. I had a passenger with me. this could have not ended good. By keeping my head calm, and thinking, even when I was scared, saying, okay, what do I have to do? What does the checklist say to do? What should I try to do? By doing all this in my head over and over, not getting frightened, not letting my hands and feet take control, I kept my head in control. And I'm here today to make this video. So basically what I want to say is, everyone gets frightened in a plane. If an unexpected happens, you're going to get frightened. But if you're prepared for it, you're going to fly with your mind, and your hands and feet are going to follow, and you're going to be safe. This is LightSport Man. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact me. And again, here is my website, here is my Facebook page, and here is my Twitter. It would be great if you come and like my page, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you and giving you more tips.